Right, so I'm going to be talking about this tool that is called VLAD today, and you'll see what it is. It's a virtual machine tool for Vagrant that makes it easier to use. If you've tried to use Vagrant just like by itself, you might have struggled or thought that it just took too long to set up compared to something like MAMP. This is a tool in the same category of tools as something like MAMP. It makes it fairly easy to set up a working development environment and to be able to set up different environments for different sites and whatnot, and use different PHP versions, different operating systems if for some reason you need to test on that and whatnot. But mostly it's just an easy way that works to set up a development environment. That's my favorite feature about it. It works. Because I've tried other ones for Vagrant and they haven't worked as well. So we'll see about that. Right, so wait, what? Oh, did I start at the wrong slide? Oh yeah, this is the first slide. See, and even the title says it. Yeah, so I'm you noticed I didn't introduce myself, but this is me. I'm Kevin Kalan, Wiz1 Solutions on Drupal.org. I have been doing some Drupal 8 as well. I maintain the fill PDF module. It has an alpha version in Drupal 8, almost 1.0. I'm going to just call whatever I have on November 19th 1.0, I think. And here are 3 other things about me. And this is, and you might hear that a lot in Norway. It just means that they're listening to you. Okay, right. So what is VLAD? I just sort of told you, but I guess in a little more detail. It's basically a glorified Vagrant file for Vagrant. The Vagrant file is what drives how Vagrant will create and operate your virtual machine. It works. It builds everything into the virtual machine using another tool, a provisioning tool, like a configuration management tool called Ansible that can create, set up the web server automatically, configure various files, put files on the machine, restart services, all this sort of stuff to make it actually work. And it works. Actually, it actually works. Yeah. If you've seen DrupalVM.com, Geerling guy's thing, it's sort of similar to that. I like this one a little bit better. I consider his the second best because his you need like this makefile or something, which is a little confusing, and it's not git ignored, I don't think, and that's annoying. This is everything that should be git ignored is git ignored on this one. So it's pretty Drupal specific, which when using it for Drupal is a good thing. I wouldn't use it for like Meteor or something, but for Drupal, it's like purpose built, so it does good for that. And why? So let's look at a situation I've been in. Like, let's say I'm going to go to a sprint at DrupalCon or something, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll work on some random Drupal 8 issues. Oh, wait, no, I need an environment to do that. What should I use? Do I have one from last time? No, but they got updated. There's a new release. And then like all this thinking, like, what kind of environment am I going to use? And what if I have to delete it and I want to start over to test a patch fresh? How long is that going to take? Oh, this is too confusing. Yeah, I just use VLAD because it's cheap to destroy and create virtual machines with it if you have good enough Wi-Fi. And even just good enough. Like it does all right because it uses caching and stuff. So I'm going to try to actually do at least one run of it during the presentation. We'll see if that is a good idea or not. It's the same consideration as Eirik's slide. It's pretty easy to configure. You just need to deal with the YAML file. They have an example one, and you copy it, and then you change what you want to change, as with many such things that you set up. It works with a few different virtual machine tools. Parallels is what I use. It also works with VirtualBox, which is free, and Fusion, which isn't. And with Fusion, I think you need the Vagrant plugin for it, which also isn't free. So Fusion is like the most expensive way to use Vagrant. Just use Parallels if you want to pay for something. Parallels, I think, is a little faster too. All right, and apparently it works with Windows, but I think even the developers don't have Windows, and somebody probably contributed it, so I don't know if they know if it still works with Windows, but it might. I think it works with Windows, if anyone's using that. And if not, you could file an issue. This thing I was saying about like it being cheap to get rid of and make new virtual machines, this is the cattle, not pets philosophy of server management, and something that is sort of baked into VLAD, which means that instead, like if you set up a server manually, it took so much time, and you're like, oh, I don't want to lose this or have to redo it because it takes hours. Then the server becomes your pet, and you have to care for it, and take care of it, not just destroy it. Whereas if you have good provisioning, like with Ansible, and you have a script, basically, that can automatically set up the server, then the server is just like cattle, it's time for it to go. It just goes away. You just make a new one if you have to repoint the DNS, whatever. It's like, it's not time consuming to do it. And also I like just that it supports, mostly Xdebug out of the box, but also if for some reason you have to use secure pages or whatever, obviously it's self-signed, the certificate, but it works. So it's convenient not to have to like do something extra. XHprof if you want a profile. Right. You don't have to. Don't let your head explode with this because we're gonna look at it in more detail. But like, this is basically the steps to do it. What is it? 6 steps. So you clone your project. You clone VLAD. You make a settings file. You update whatever you want in the settings file. You run it, and you wait. And then you can go to the site at whatever domain you set up. So again, don't think too much about it. It's all documented anyway. And then a couple gotchas after you provision. You still probably need like a local settings.php or a settings.php, depending on if you're using Acquia or Pantheon or just like a regular site. I think local, that's actually Acquia, and Pantheon by default is settings.local.php. But anyway, you probably know how your site works, so just do that. And VLAD has good documentation, so by default it has like just, I don't know, VLAD Wibble or something for the database credentials, but you can just look at the default values on their variables page to see what it is. And then you can put that into your settings.php. So anyway, that's like detailed stuff. Right, are we there yet? Oh yeah, recently I added this feature to VLAD, which just basically lets you put a few variables in your settings, and then it will use the Pantheon command line interface to download the latest database and files, and it'll put it into your VLAD site, and it works. Seriously. All right. This is a joke based on one of the developers of VLAD's presentation in DrupalCamp Brighton, where apparently he screamed out, "Vagrant share!" This is a Vagrant feature, but it works with VLAD. We could take a look at that if we have time. But basically, you can share your local with the internet. So if you have not deployed some client changes and you want to show it to them, which actually happened to me once, and I was using VLAD, so I was glad. You can type Vagrant share, and then it'll make a URL. If you ever use something like Local Tunnel, it's similar to that. You get a URL, they go to the URL, and then they can see the site. And when I did this, it worked well. They were going to look at what I had done so far, and they did, and it worked. So this is, if you're ever in that situation, this is useful. And yeah, all right. We've come to the demo. I don't like slides that much, but I feel compelled to have a few. Just in case, I don't know, I don't have internet. Okay, let's see. So obviously I have cheated, and I've already run VLAD on a couple things. So
do you have something dimming your screen or something? It looks
Oh, it's past sundown, right? I have flux. 1 second. Yeah. I'm amazed that the projector actually supports it.
Yeah.
Okay, is it better now? Okay. Right, so, yeah. I've cheated, but I want to show you something cool. So this is a node that I've created on my VLAD site. I just installed Drupal 8, and then I made a node, and I used some Unicode. And I'm going to destroy this VM now, and I'm going to recreate it. And we can look at some other stuff while I do that. But I'm not going to tell you any more than that. Okay, let's see. I think it's this one. Okay, so I just type vagrant destroy. The -f is just so it doesn't ask me if I'm sure that I want to destroy it. So it does that. It's going to do some stuff. It uses, VLAD uses like some Vagrant plugins to do different things. In this case, it has like its own scripts it runs before Vagrant to do some things, which I'll explain in a second. Because if I explain it now, I'm going to spoil it. All right, so that's going to go away. Make sure it's gone. Yeah, it's gone. It's not loading. Okay, great. Now I am just going to, I already have it configured. So I'm just going to do Vagrant up. And I have to tell it to use parallel. So now it is going to install everything. I already typed my password, so it won't ask me again. Good. So while it does that, let's look a little bit more at some of the VLAD documentation and how to use it. So, and some tips, because sometimes, I don't know, because they have a very basic default configuration file now. So you might not know that some of the options exist unless you read the documentation. So I'm going to tell you. Speaking of which, I guess we should look at the default configuration file first. Let's see, so it's example, settings. Oh, wrong one. There's like 3 ways to open things in PHP Storm. So, and I always pick the wrong one. Right, so this is what you get by default. It has a cow, so that's a pretty good feature too. You can delete the cow in your configuration if you want, but why would you if you have a heart? By default, you see it just like you can. Yeah, generally, if you've never used VLAD before, you could actually run this without changing anything. Well, you'd have to copy it, but it would work. By default, it uses Drupal.local. Usually, you will want to change this to something else, like I did on that one. What did I say? DC Oslo 2015.local. And VLAD will automatically change your etc. hosts file, so you don't have to do it yourself. It uses a Vagrant plugin to do that. Usually you want to change the IP, otherwise bad things happen. I forgot to change the IP on my second demo today, and I was like, why isn't this working? Oh, yeah, wrong IP. Also, I copied the settings wrong, and I had a prefix, and there was no prefix in the database I copied, but that's another thing. Right, so yeah, this is the default. By default, it puts your doc root underneath the VLAD folder. I don't like that. I don't use that structure. I'll show you the one I use in a bit. But then you have all this software that you can install or not install. Let's see, it puts in this adminer, which I think is like a phpMyAdmin sort of tool. Yeah, getting a nod, so that's probably it. Apache doesn't have Nginx. I guess they kept that simple, but that's fine because it doesn't. It's pretty like it's for Drupal and it just has to work, so it does that well. Let's see, MySQL, obviously PHP. I would hope. Also, it installs Drush. Obviously, you can change the Drush version. I'll show that a bit later. You can change you can have Varnish if you want, and then you can change the HTTP port. And this is what they consider to be the most important configuration, I guess. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to like look at the configuration and see like what's going on and what you're changing. So that's why I like YAML. It's pretty easy like that. So, bit about project. Hans, how much time do I have?
You have 10 minutes.
Okay. So right, the project structure I like to use, just skipping past a bit of this, is to have like a wrapper. This is very small, but this says demo project. It's like a wrapper folder for everything. And then I clone VLAD into that at the same level as all of this other stuff. So you have the doc root at the same level as VLAD. And then if VLAD updates, you can just git pull to update it instead of, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do that if the doc root was underneath it, but then maybe you have to git ignore, and it gets confusing. And then the doc root sees that it's in another git one, and nah. I like this two repos parallel one. And then you have the settings in its own settings folder, and then I usually just put this wrapper folder at the top into my IDE as like the project root, and then I can just use the IDE to change the VLAD settings and everything, and it's nice. So just remember these three words, two repos parallel. So there's that. Like I said, there are a lot more variables than what you see in the configuration. Like you can tell it what operating system you want to use. You could use CentOS if you wanted to for some reason, or old Ubuntu. You can change where the doc root and where like what it calls its auxiliary directory is. That's where it puts, like, you know, if you do a drush backup, it'll put it in there. Sort of like think of it as a VLAD private files directory. It's kind of like that, this aux synced folder. You can turn off NFS if you want. That's what it uses for file sharing by default. Debugging stuff, you can change the memory, CPUs. Oh yeah, I added the parallels support too. And so I put this one in. You can make it update the guest tool stuff in Parallels if you want. And then yeah, components to install, that's already in there. One very cool feature that I saw used recently and that I want to use myself is that you can, if you know Ansible, you can actually use a custom playbook. And after it starts, you can, like, let's say you want to install Drupal console. That would actually be pretty easy to do in Ansible. Or you could even probably use like Geerling Guy's Ansible role and just put that in a custom role or a custom playbook. And then VLAD will run it for you. And then you on the VM, on the virtual machine. So like you can extend VLAD in this way. And it's really pretty easy. You need like a VLAD custom folder and a provision.yml. Well, it's easy if you know Ansible. But Ansible is pretty easy to learn. I think, like, I don't know. I think I learned a decent amount in like one day or something when I just wanted to finally use it to make a server. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn Ansible. I had been like a user of it, but not a developer of it. And yeah, it's pretty easy. Because it's pretty much just YAML. Yeah, so all that other stuff. All right, I bet my VM is done. Yes, it is. And, like I promised, it works. Like, I don't even have to, yeah, I don't have to think like, oh, what if it doesn't work? It did work. And then, okay, so quickly, if we look at you can see everything that happened in nice colors. If there was something, sometimes you get something red, but it's like smart enough to know that, well, varnish didn't work because they didn't turn on varnish, so that's okay. And it doesn't error out like every other one, I feel like. Okay, well, I'm not going to show too much because I'll spoil it. Look at this, look at this. So I'm going to go to the same page as before, and it survived. So okay, what happened there? If we go back up to when I did it and we look a little closer at the output, I think we can find it. Where was the destroy? Little higher, little higher. Is this the one? Yeah, here it is. Look at this one here, if you can. It said, no, not that one, the third one, where it says dump all databases. So it dumped the database to the VLAD aux folder, which is on my computer. And then I have something in my configuration for it. Is this the right one? Yeah. That says I use this db import up true. And basically what that means is that if it finds a .sql.gz and a couple other extensions file that matches the name of the database, it will automatically import it if the database is empty. So that's basically what happened. It built it, it saw that, oh, there's no data in this database, but it's configured to import matching file names, and it imported it. And so then I could destroy the whole VM and create it again and basically continue where I left off. So like if I broke something on it, I could just destroy it, as long as it wasn't the database, I guess, and get the database back like pretty quickly. That didn't. I think I was talking probably for like 4 minutes after it finished. So that's cool. We'll see if the other one can finish, because I don't know. I think I have 4 minutes. That might be just long enough. Right. So the Pantheon one. Let's see. So this is a Pantheon site I just made today, and basically I've already imported it here because I have to make sure it works in case I don't have time to actually do it. And if we go here, probably have to go to content. Then it's the same thing as Pantheon. Let's destroy that too. So destroying with vagrant destroy, and then in this case I want to remove some files so that it will actually re-import it from Pantheon again. So I am gonna delete the files. What? Yeah, all of it. Great. I'm glad it wasn't site's default, because I hate the read-only error with that. And then also I have to delete when it downloaded the files last time. And I'm just going to delete this to prove it's working. So it's going to download the database and the files when I do it again. While we wait for that, let's look at vagrant share. So if I just type vagrant share, I don't remember if I actually do have to specify the port like my command history was telling me or not. But I'm just going to try this. Okay. Oh, that green looks much better on the projector than my screen. Like readable. So let's see, the one I'm sharing is this I will survive one. So if I go there, I have to log in because cookies. What else is it that? Extremely secure. And then if I go to content, it's the same site with vagrant share. So pretty easy, pretty cool. Yeah, this one it's really surviving everywhere. How are we? Did it ask me for my password? That would be embarrassing. No? Okay, it's like halfway through. That's pretty cool. It uses a lot of caching, so it goes surprisingly fast. At least after the first run. I've built these so many times today and destroyed them during presentations, and I'll just look away for a bit and I look back and it's done and I'm like, is it already done? So it's very handy. What else do we got? Did vagrant share, did Pantheon. I did the I will survive node. That was probably the coolest demo. Well, how about I take questions while we wait for this to finish? Any questions? Probably I went too fast on something, so maybe if you have questions about that, or if you didn't understand anything. Why are we here?
Ansible. Can I explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I think actually the community site is this one. If you go to Ansible.com, you get their commercial thing. Oh, and now they're linking to their commercial thing from this site too. Yeah, this is it's just a simple YAML tool. Apparently they have a video here, if you want to look at that later, that lets you write YAML in order to instrument stuff on servers or your local machine. There are people who use Ansible to automatically install software on a new Mac, for example, and change various configuration settings and whatnot. So it's basically, yeah, it's kind of a generalized instrumentation software that, yeah, I mean, you could use that. You can use for scripting various things. It has a lot of built-in modules for like, I think, I don't, like MySQL, for example. I'm trying to think of simple ones, not complex ones. And yeah, like they seem to have a philosophy of putting all the functionality in the actual product. So it's pretty handy. You don't have to like download a lot of external things. I don't think I've ever actually used a community Ansible module. Usually I'll just try to figure out how to do it another way. But I've used it, some things I've used it for is server setup, obviously. I finally have, I have this service called fill PDF service, and it's actually, I can deploy it with Ansible now. I made a little deploy script, and I can rebuild the server setup like completely automated. So this is really handy because it means I can test the server setup locally. I just make it, I change like, I have a Vagrant file, I change it a little bit to actually work locally, but it'll build the same server. And so if something is broken on prod, then I can probably see it broken locally, I can fix it, and then I can deploy the fix. So it's, you can use it for scripting various things that you might have used Bash or something else for up until now. That explain a little bit? Cool. You had a question?
You used it for multiple projects where you have shared hosting or where you combine multiple projects on one server?
I did use it for a migration once, where because I wanted to do things fast, that would have been slow to do by hand. Basically, I used it to reconfigure the database to point to another server on the same network so that basically people would get the right database until the DNS switched over. So that was neat. And also to automatically copy the database from the old server to the new server once I was sure that the new server was working like I wanted. Basically a migration sort of script and failover.
Do you use it to replicate the work? Or why do you use it in vital space? Do you use it to
Yeah, so that I only have to figure out how to set up a server one time. Because once you have this script, because it's in YAML and because you can give a name to every step, it's documentation on how the server is set up, like what the steps are. And if you use good names for each step, then you can basically read that and be like, oh yeah, okay, this is what it's doing. And you can obviously put comments and whatnot because it's just a YAML file. So, all right, it looks like it worked. It works. That's the best feature. It is the best feature. So if we scroll up a little bit to this output, mostly this Pantheon import site part. So let's start about here. So we see it's logging into Pantheon right here, and then it does some checks, blah, blah, blah. It downloads the latest backup and like saves it. That's the files backup. Also, then it checks the database backup, downloads that. The neat thing here is that it's using VLAD's database import trick the same way that that we saw with the I Will Survive node. So I kind of hacked it. I just download it to that location, and then VLAD will import it. So I saved some time like that. So it does that, and then if it worked, then we'll have the same thing again locally. I don't know if I have to log in or not. Ah, yeah. That is all. Wait. That's not all. We already did questions. Okay, that's all.